So I don't really have a question for this. Actually, I'm surprised that nobody brought this up, and I only just thought about it a second ago. I want to talk in some way about like handedness in the game, because in Saber, that's not really something that it has much of an effect on the game. I mean, statistically, it must be an advantage because half of finalists are left-handed in Saber, and that's not representative of the population. So at some level, it must be an advantage, but it's just not
In
something
what?
I personally.
In the world population, only 9 to 10% of the population over the world is left-handed. They don't know why. In fencing, it's closer to 30%. So of the over, so Ralf and I were both are both left-handed. We still continue to be left-handed. So, and I don't understand anybody who has to fence with their right hand. I feel sorry for you guys. I think being lefty and born left-handed and being able to fence foil left-handed is like one of the most special things. Being a fencer, I'm sure. I think Ralf would agree with me as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I mean, I think in the Olympic Games in 2000 there were like 6 lefties in the top 8, and then as Dan says, I think world population is something around 10%, maybe a little bit higher. So there is just the reality that there is above percentage lefties which are successful. Why? I don't know. I have a bit of a feeling because if I take the foil in the right hand, it just feels wrong. I can't move. I can't do anything. So I don't know. It feels better in the left hand. No real explanation, but I mean the facts for themselves.
I think it's I thinking about it a lot. What I think it is just that because a righty is never going to fence as many lefties as a lefty will fence a righty. And so there's right away, the angles are different. We have a statistical advantage. But the flip side of this, and everybody, when you see 2 lefties fence, it's
I was going to bring that up.
It's like it's 2 lefties fencing is like 2 monkeys trying to hump a football, 9 times out of 10. And like like if you
Dan, how do you know what that looks like?
Because I have pictures. No, pictures of fencing. But it's just, but like if you could teach that one lefty to make like a feint disengage around the parry four, they'll win the Olympics with their eyes closed. I mean, it's just it sounds so silly to say, but like when you look at like somebody like, just say like Kalong Chung, his hard bouts are all against lefties. It's all against lefties because he just doesn't see. He's got Ryan Choi, but it's just like that's a matchup thing. He knows him too well, but like he doesn't have that generic lefty to just practice going around. It's.
I was going to say Ryan Choi is also crazy. So
yeah, I'm not. And don't get me wrong, I'm not picking on Kalong. It's every lefty has this problem because they just don't see enough lefties to make that disengage to the outside.
It's an experience thing, yeah.
And once you can teach somebody, if you can teach somebody to do that, it's really game over. Because everybody is so creative, but if everybody knows it's just like lefty, if everybody knows whatever you do, it's going to end up in 4, all you got to do is wait and parry or counterattack and parry.
But do you think with more lefty coaches, because when I was younger, there were not so many lefty coaches. Do you think that with more and more lefty coaches, that will be different in the future?
I hope so. I hope so. But I think the problem, I think the quality will definitely go up, but I think the problem overall is just reps. You're not going to get enough reps lefty on lefty, enough variation of lefty on lefty bouts as you would lefty righty or righty on righty. I think it's just a numbers game, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, to go back to like your original question, I think a lot of left-handed fencers develop a confidence to stay closer earlier. because they're more successful counterattacking. And I think that through that, they learn to recognize like certain things in defense that maybe other people don't. But about the lefty thing, I personally, like, I have like a whole different like set of tactics for the lefty bouts because of exactly what Dan said.
Yeah.
Like, okay, there's a good chance this person isn't going to be so great at attacking you. All right. So maybe we should orient ourselves a little bit differently. And
this person's going to have a really good parry four. They're going to have a good parry four.
Yeah.
We know that.
Lately,
so
when I
don't want to go there.
I've been experimenting more with lefty like drills and things like that, just so that like anytime we do drills, I always tell the lefties, like, if you can find another left-handed fencer to be partners with, please do so, because because they need to develop, like,
makes sense.
They need a lot of success. Like if the drill is some simultaneous thing where they're allowed to go simultaneous or make paraposts or whatever, they need to make paraposts to all these different spots and develop some sense of confidence that they can do it, because I think it's so much easier lefty righty to get really close and get closer than lunge distance and still turn a light on, because you can finish to the outside or you can finish to the inside with an angle. Whereas right against right or left against left, it's hard to do that. It's harder. So just by like putting them in situations where they experience success over and over again, where they like map out the pathway, like instead of it being like this, it has to be like this or whatever. So we'll see what happens. I also tell them, so I don't have any real evidence that it's working, but we'll see what happens.
I have little girls, so I'll know in a few years, but basically what I've been doing is like, they're going to know how to go straight by instinct. So it's like 2 or 3 straight touches and everything is like, let's get creative touching anywhere but 4. And like when you're under, like, so when these girls grow up, so when they're under pressure, everybody I know when they're under pressure, just hold your hand back and try and jam it into 4 as best way. But the cool touches, the ones that are successful, the person that is in foil is patient and then goes to where the open target is and not just panic and jam it into 4. So if I can teach these little girls in this moment of panic that anywhere but 4, look anywhere but 4. And then at the end, if you need to go to 4, fine. We'll see what happens. I don't know.
That's interesting. During my career, I fenced for New York Athletic Club. And like I said, in Sabre, at least for me, lefty righty was not even something I thought about. But I remember sitting at a NAC once in like the group with the épée fencers, and some of the right-handed fencers came back and sat down and were complaining about lefties. And I forget who it was, but one of the left-handed fencers was like, dude, tell me about it. So like,
I'm curious though. I never really thought about it. In Sabre, it's not a thing. Like people aren't like, oh God, this guy's left-handed, I don't want to fence him. Like it doesn't happen.
I can only speak for myself, but I can honestly tell you that if I fence someone in a tournament and like 5 minutes later you ask me if that person was left or right-handed, a lot of the time I wouldn't even be able to tell you. But I did fence just for fun foil for a little while to help my refereeing, and I could tell you for sure after I fenced the bout if the person was left-handed or right-handed. But again, I can only speak for myself. So
I hated fencing lefties until very late in my career. Like Ralf used to kill me. Even like it was just I hated it until very like the angle was and the distance was just all wrong. And then I figure and then you finally figure out how to go somewhere else. Like, oh, this is it. Okay, and then all of a sudden you have to be able to do it with your eyes closed, and if you can, it becomes very easy. But if like your eyes start to fool you, then you're like, oh, here we go again. And I'm stuck holding my hand back, and it's murder.
Hey guys, I just got back from vacation and I'm hard at work editing a bunch of different videos for everyone. As many of you may know, my anticipated Amazing Touches video is coming up soon. I often get asked why I only use men's saber clips in these annual videos. And the answer is most people aren't aware of just how long it actually takes to make videos like this. The truth is I usually spend somewhere between 80 and 150 hours on each of them, which sounds like a lot because it is. And most of the time that I spend on these videos is actually spent sifting through hours and hours of streams to find the amazing touches that eventually make the cut in the video. But with a few more people contributing to my Patreon account, I could probably afford to pay some people to help me go through these videos and find the clips that I'm looking for. And if that happened, maybe I'd be able to make another video or two. Who knows? Maybe I'd even be able to make 6 of them. A link to my Patreon account is in the video description. So if that sounds appealing to you, please feel free to contribute. The easiest thing to do is just drop $1 in there. But if you drop $3 in there, you get access to my rough drafts before I post them. And there are other benefits too. So take a quick look if you have the means. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Please continue enjoying the video. So I don't know a lot about the subject, but there's an interesting phenomenon in like soccer or football for our international viewers, where people who are born earlier in the year have an advantage, or there's more of them.
It was in Malcolm Gladwell's book. It was in Blake, where it's like the most professional football players, also most professional hockey players, are born in the first 3 months of the year, first 4 months of the year, just because of the way the picking system goes back to youth. They just happen to be bigger and stronger, so they get more attention from the coaches. And like I said, it's his book, his data, it bears out. I think fencing is a little different because we are much more a technical sport and not necessarily a physiological sport.
What I was going to say is I think that my personal theory on the success of like lefties in fencing is that at the beginning, like you were saying before, I think Alex mentioned this before, they know that they're harder to hit. And so that could be more fun for them because they have like a slight boost in success early compared to right-handed people. And it may not be as much of an advantage at the top level as like the 10% to like 30% difference would indicate, but more of those people stuck around early because they had that advantage early.
And I wonder, thinking about that and thinking about just how successful Ralf has been in coaching, and then maybe myself, is like when I think about coaching fencing, as a lefty, I'm trying to get everybody to fence like a lefty, even the righties. I'm trying to teach everybody my lefty tricks, even if you have to do it with your right hand. So maybe there's something to that as well in terms of like coaching style and coaching like success, if you will.
Yeah, I always felt your left-handed fencers counterattack more. It's nature. It's nature.
Yeah.
No nurture. Yeah.
I am an atheist, but as a lefty, it is your God-given right to counterattack. And like when Race came to me, like he said, like, I don't counterattack. I was like, what are you talking about, man? It's like you're tall, you're left-handed. It's like, I'm going to show you this thing called hit and get away. It's like, I don't think it's going to work, Dan. I was like, trust me, it'll work. And then he was like down 13-7 to Avola in the final of Paris, and everything is hit and get away for the end of it. It's just, I think I've told Ralf and I've told Alex, I'm a big believer, lefty or righty, I think you can make the blade do amazing things. I think you can make it do unbelievable things. You just gotta like believe in it. You have to be able to hit people without your own eyes being able to see the target. My coach used to say that like your guard has to have eyes of its own, like to see a very Russian thing to say, very Ukrainian thing to say, not Russian now, very Ukrainian thing to say. So it's that sort of thing I believe in.
Interesting. Is there anything you guys want to say more on this specific topic, or should I go into the next thing?
Well, I think that there are people who I had quite a few fencers which were born in December, which were quite successful. And yes, they might have a physical disadvantage in the early stage, but some of them they develop more craftiness, they develop better skills because, well, they can't just shove it in somehow because they are stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they have a disadvantage in the beginning because like, okay, everybody is like almost like 10 months older, right? But some of them, if they grind, if they stick into this, I think they develop some skills which help later when the development is done. And you see that like in women's fall a little bit earlier and in men's fall a little bit later. And then to what Dan said. Yeah, I try to teach righties these angles but I feel it's more difficult than to teach to a lefty. Maybe it's what you said before with the repetition and everything, but it doesn't come so natural. Doesn't come so natural to a lot of people. And I can't. And the lefties, I think they're quite smart. I think if a lefty fences a righty, to hit the flank is not so super difficult with angles. But I think the lefties are very smart. They are closing with the elbow. You know, the force closed, the elbow closes, everything closes, and then okay, we're gonna hit on the shoulder. You have to.
It's really interesting that our left-handed coach is talking about how lefties are smart. And Dan's nodding the whole time.
I believe I have read some research that there's better three-dimensional cognitive skills and so on. I'm not sure how much that is true, but I think
lefties are the only people in their right mind. Just goes back to that.
That's cute. I like that.
We'll find out when there's more money in fencing, when there's more research and stuff like that, about the side of the brain dominance and all those things. I think that's could be a real thing. We haven't studied it, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. Also, I like what Ralf was saying before about how even though the December, November, October people might have a slight disadvantage because they're smaller, if they are able to get through that initial part, they end up having almost like a craftiness advantage later. And I've noticed that a lot with like the really athletic kids, because in the beginning they rely so much on their athleticism that they just kind of like disregard a lot of the tactical or timing or like even technical stuff that you need to succeed at the top level. And one of the things that I hear as a coach that just drives me totally nuts is like when I tell someone to do something in a lesson and like they hit me anyway, and I'm like, all right, you didn't do that correctly. They're like, but I still got the touch. It's like, okay, but that's not a particularly repeatable way to get touches. And just because you're bigger and stronger now doesn't necessarily mean that will continue to be the case in the future. So you need to learn how to really do something instead of relying so much on your physicality.
It's not about winning, it's learning. I tell my kids, it's not about learning how to win. That's important, but it's about learning how to win the right way, because this will work against a certain level of fencer, but you're just going to get smacked down once you get to the next fencer, because this is not what the best fencing in the world looks like. And I always ask my fencers, like, does your fencing look like the best fencing in the world? If not, why not?
Yeah.
And if the answer is you just want to have fun and do your own thing,
that's fine. That's a different thing.
That's fine. Yeah. Fine. But if you say you're serious about this, then please do something about it.
I know that you guys are getting into like a broad conversation about early specialization in a way, which is really, it's really like it's what we were talking about earlier, that every country, every city, every club, every like little ecosystem has different norms when it comes to how good are you supposed to be when you're 12. And if you're in an environment where there's a real push for early specialization, you might be more inclined to give up on yourself, or your parents might pull the plug on your fencing because you're born in December, and they read that statistically it's better to be born in January. And so, but in the long term, like when we think about it, like if you understand fencing, does it really matter what month you're born in? Like that's crazy talk. But
no. But also feeding
to this pressure of early results, like
feeding what Alex just said. Like there was a study that is it something like 90% of kids quit organized athletics at age 13 because they understand they're not good enough to keep up anymore. Whoa. So no, it's a crazy amount. So when you see there are clubs and they're great and I understand, but when like we do the best in youth fencing, I was like, and there are clubs that do great in youth fencing and then do great at the upper levels. I have no problem with that. But then you got the clubs that do great youth fencing, and then after the youth fencing is over, they do nothing. And it's like, for me, it's like, what is your definition of good? And for me, I have my standard of what good is. I feel like it's a very high standard. When you say that somebody somebody said to me once, I was like, "Oh, Dan, look at this. Isn't he good?" I was like, "We're at a qualifier event. Nobody good is here. Like,
Yeah.
if you were good, you wouldn't have to be at the qualifier event."
Honestly, my kids ask me that all the time. Like, how good do you think this person is? I'm like, I don't know. They're trash. Like,
Yeah.
they're not rated on the senior points list. Like, they're just not good. So like, yeah, it's very much a relative question.